For some reason, my hard round brush challenge video that I did 5 years ago is still getting views. It's doing better than most of my other videos. It just kind of steadily getting more views over time, and it's kind of cool. And it's making me think maybe I should try doing something like that again 5 years later. I do use the round brush for other things. I have used the round brush for doing studies. I don't know if I've really done like a finished painting in a long time, but typically I use the pressure size brush so I can get different thicknesses to it. I'm not going to be doing that this time, and I'm also not going to allow myself to change the opacity. I can use the eraser, but it's just going to be the round brush as well. So since it's 100, keeping it at 100% opacity, I won't be able to see through it or any way to kind of build up layers of color. I'll have to pretty much manually select the colors until I get the ones that I like, and then I can color pick the things I already have. I already went ahead and started making some thumbnails. So these are the thumbnails that I came up with. I already talked about it, but I had it muted. So some of my favorite ones was this island one, which is the one I'm gonna pick as well. I like kind of the idea of this like a white mountain where usually they're darker, but if it was like a white stone mountain, that would be kind of neat. Or just a lighter value. I like this kind of valley where this spiky looking plant or mountain. Not really sure what it is, but I just like the shapes in there. I think that's cool. That might be a cool idea to visit. I just like how the values are layered nicely there. I have a few forest ones, which would be a pain to do with a round brush. So maybe if I really want to punish myself, I'll do that. And then I also like this field one with kind of a tower in the distance. It's just kind of a nice composition, just easy to look at. And I tend to like drawing with the bigger, chunkier brushes just to block out the value a lot easier. This is what I got to work off and see where it goes. I'm guessing I'm going to put some sort of building up here or vegetation, maybe just some trees that are growing up here. But I do want to keep this overall shape. I don't really want to add a pointiness to it other than maybe like a couple of things. So without further ado, I think I'm going to start painting. Okay, so I went ahead and I time-lapsed the whole painting, and I'm going to talk about it and give my commentary on it as I watch it. Okay, let's get this started. So I started working in gray, touching things up, maybe trying some layers to see if I can play with some of the shapes, that maybe rearrange on how the water reflection looks, which I will work on a ton over the whole thing. Painting a couple more details. And then I decided to do a gradient map to just give me a starting point with my color, since I was already working in gray and I didn't want to repaint everything to get a blue color. And one of the hardest things here was getting the sky to look right, because since it was a hard round brush, the edges were hard, so I couldn't get a real soft gradient to it, so I kind of just left it at that. Eventually I will paint some clouds over it and that'll make it a little more pleasing to look at, but the banding is really hard to avoid with that. And now I'm getting into using the brush. At this point is I have to start varying the size. I'm putting in a little more rocky detail in the land. I decided to make this into some ruins at the top, which is what my initial idea was. And I will struggle with the water here for a while to get the reflection just right, because there's distortion that naturally happens, but usually it happens in a variety of sizes. So here's probably the very beginning of the reflection. You want to see the water moving. Yeah, seeing the water move gives you that idea of like, okay, this is water because it's moving. Relatively simple. something else to know about color is I vary it, because that's like, as with the sky, it's not just a flat color, it changes. And that is the case for all color. If you want to give it a realistic appearance, even though it's not realism, you want to make micro adjustments to the color with the saturation or the hue or the value, and either make it a little more green, a little more blue. Eventually I'll do a little bit of purple in the land in the background, the island in the background. There'll be a little bit of purple in there. In the water, I do a lot of variation. Yep, there's the purple right there. And in the water, I do some variation with like towards the greens and kind of yellow-ish, and just move it around a little bit. And there I go again, repainting the reflection. Yet again, it's probably the part that I repaint the most in the whole painting. And one of the big problems I had with this painting, I didn't really think about the lighting to begin with. And I eventually settle on, okay, the lighting's mostly coming top down, but I kind of put it slightly to the right to give it more of a direction, so we can get the shadows to look nice on things. Like the ruins will have the lights coming from the upper right. I also wasn't sure how many clouds I should leave in. I end up not really leaving the clouds in. It can become quite a pain to figure out the details you want to leave in. I could see a world where I leave some clouds in the sky, but overall I was just kind of annoyed with them, and then I would have to draw more shadows, which is already a problem for me, is trying to get the shadow under this rock with the reflections happening. So if I want to paint more reflections, I think I might go back through and just do a cloudy sky, flip it. Oh, I didn't want to flip it because I felt like that was kind of cheating the rules a little bit, but I guess I could have. It's my challenge. I can do what I want with it. I could have flipped it. I might go back and do that at some point just for fun. I covered most of the problems and the difficulties that it comes with the round brush. So the biggest challenge with this was manually changing the size for the brush, which made me actually have better control of the variation in it. But I couldn't like have a thin to thick line. It was just all the same thickness per line, which is annoying, but at the same time it forced me to think about like, okay, I need to do a smaller size to do these smaller details, or do a bigger size to just kind of block out the shapes. And I think that's a really important skill, to be able to be like, okay, I can go big here instead of trying to fill in a bunch of area with a tiny thing. Is like trying to fill in large value chunks with a pencil. You just gotta go over it and over it again and again. Might as well get out the paint and fill it in. Really liking how the reflections are looking at this point, with the water from the mountains, and just, yeah, I just like how the water looks. I just love painting water. I got plenty of variation in the color in the water, and I will continue to add more. And another challenge was figuring out what kind of shapes am I going to paint in these buildings, or these old castle ruins on the top of this building. And those came together pretty easy. I just kept them as like a simple blocky shapes and just kind of played with them a little bit. And I didn't really think about how things worked exactly with the castle. I just wanted to put some interesting variety in the shapes that informs in the painting. I do find when you're painting foliage, that's where it's like the most important to get the color variation, because leaves will either pick up light and they'll be a little translucent, and they'll bounce all around the trees, and you will get all kinds of variety of greens because of that, which makes green kind of a challenging color to paint with. And I think keeping the leaves about the same size made it easier to be like, okay. And then at this point, I decide to try and smooth out the gradient in the sky by just meticulously picking the colors and adjusting them and having like the smallest increment of color change. And it still did not get rid of all that banding. So my favorite parts about this painting is just kind of how chunky the shapes are, how like obvious the color changes too. It gives it its own unique style to it. So I'd say painting with a hard round brush is its own style. But my favorite part of the paint was the reflection, even though it was probably the most painful part to do. But it was like a little abstract, and it really made the painting pop once you put the ripples in the water to just make you feel like you're there. It feels like, oh, okay, the water's moving. It's kind of a cool day, or it feels like a cool day. Maybe it's a hot summer day, but the cool blues make me feel cooler. And then I get into doing a bunch of details on the bottom of the rock to show bounce light. So basically the blue sky is going down, hitting the water. That's why the water's blue, but then it comes back up and hits the bottom of this rock. And I think that has a really cool, like, glowing effect to it. And it was a pain because, again, I have to manually pick the colors and go back and do it. Okay, so that's the end of the time lapse. Okay, so I finished up the painting yesterday as of recording this segment. The round brush is definitely a challenge to use, but it's also very useful. There's a lot that you can do with it. You have to think in bigger shapes because the shape doesn't change. It's just one shape. It doesn't like have pressure to the size, so it doesn't get smaller if you draw lighter or press harder. Which, if you can do that, that's always nice because that's like actually drawing with a pencil. But this has more of a solid shape to it. It's hard to get a variation in it without manually changing the size. It was kind of cool I'm glad I have the chance to come back and do something like this. It's not as good as my regular paintings, but it has its own aesthetic to it, and I like that. I really like the distortion in the water to give it that watery look. And then also the bounce light on the rock. So the sky comes down, hits the water, comes back up. That's where kind of the blue color comes from. And then it goes on to the rock there. So that's one of my favorite parts of it. And I do plan on spending maybe like another 20 minutes to an hour on here. But this is where I ended it for the video. If I go back and do it, I will plug it in right at the end of the video and have all my finishing touches done. So did I improve at using the round brush? I guess so, but I think I just improved my skills overall. I've just been refining and doing more and getting better at it throughout the years. And until next time, Dartagon out. So I am starting a Patreon. You don't have to go sign up for it, but if you'd like to, it's there. You'll get artwork, you'll get a Discord access, and for now, I'm going to let people be able to comment on there, and I will try and interact as much as I possibly can, and it'll be a lot easier to do that starting now. Eventually, I might not be able to do that, so if you want to like feedback on your artwork early on, I'll do a little bit of that. So that's kind of the biggest bonus that you can get out of signing up for it right now. Because I really don't see a ton of people at the moment. Maybe by the end of the year, I'll be making enough money to like live off. That would be sweet. But anyways, that's my plug for the end of the video. If you made it this far, and I'll see you next time.